professor, physician, epidemiologist. I am Dr. Shree Banerjee.
Hello everyone, and happy first day of spring. In this video, I'm just going to show you a little bit about a chart that I created right when the sun entered Aries for the first day of spring. So as you can see, the sun is in Aries at 0 degrees and 0 minutes. So if you look at the ascendant, actually, the ascendant is in Gemini. But something that is interesting happening, especially in this location, is that the asteroid Lilith is actually on the ascendant. And so that may mean that collectively, so these are all collective patterns, and so collectively maybe we are accustomed to an individual's more professional side, and kind of also the raw footage that we're also seeing. So, for instance, when we're seeing some of our leaders, for instance, President Zelensky, appealing from the videos, you'll see some of the more video footage that are seen in cameras and places that are not professional media outlets. So this is something that may be characteristic of trends. There's some other interesting aspects that are good to note in here. For instance, we have a nice Mars and Venus conjunction, which means that it's good to have leaders that are charismatic, but also thinking outside of the box, because there's a square with Uranus. And so these are the highlights of what is going on, and some things to look forward to collectively. Also, there's some powerful Pluto moon squares, which means collectively we're also grappling with recovering from the pandemic and rebuilding communities. Thank you for listening. So now, in this view, I decided to create something called a lunar return chart. So what does this mean? So what I did is I took the initial first day of spring chart that I told you about, and took a snapshot of what was in the heavens at that time. Then what I did is I looked at what point the moon goes back to the original starting point where it was on the day that the sun entered Aries. So that day that the moon returns in the same place is April 16th. So on April 16th, what I look at is, now, what are some of the important signs? So the ascendant is actually in Scorpio, and so that's an important point to think about. So the ascendant is in Scorpio, so understanding and grappling with some of these common themes of understanding the new era after the pandemic, rebuilding, coming to terms with, these are all part of Scorpio. So moon kind of accentuates some of those things. So the moon is on the ascendant on that day. But then there's additional aspects that you could be looking for. So I encourage you to explore this chart further. But the other lunar return chart that I'm going to be looking at now is the next lunar return. So this lunar return took place on May 14th, or is going to be taking place. This is in the future, on May 14th. And I can say that because that is the second time that the moon goes back to the same place that it was on the day that the sun entered Aries in March. So the moon is in the same place again. And that same place was 2954 Libra. So if we are to look at the skies, take a snapshot on May 14th, when that takes place, at the very moment, then we find that not only Gemini is the ruling sign, but also a planetary body that has to do with Gemini, Mercury, is hugging the ascendant, which means that communication is going to be key, kind of understanding, and part of global trends will be cross-cultural and cross-national communication negotiations. So I hope this has given you some idea about what is yet to come. And so the chart that I made for the first day of spring is actually applicable throughout the year, in theory, through next spring. Thank you for listening.